Hello software developers, this is Andrew talking, and in this video we'll be talking about Apple Unified Login System. So first of all, we'll talk briefly what the difference between logger and using print statements or debug print statements when developing your application, what the benefits of logging, why do we need to do that, and how to export logs, how to format them, and what are the different types of logs that Apple Unified Login System provides us. When you just start creating an application, you will encounter the need of knowing what the state of your application is. So inevitably, you will start using the print statements, which prints the output to your Xcode console. If you want to have some more context, you can use debug print statements, which gives you more context. But again, when you're developing a huge application, work for a company or some startup, you need to use some unified login system or some framework in order to do logs. We don't rely on print statements because they are just for development purposes. They are not saved anywhere and don't help us to trace bugs. So what is unified login system provided by Apple? This is a framework that gives us print statements to Xcode output, but also saves those logs into files on a specific location. We could retrieve those files from the last hour, last 24 hours, or some other specific time frame. We could also build in the system to the application, and when your client encounters some unexpected behavior when using your application, you can ask a client to send you logs in order to be able to trace the bug and fix it later on. So that's why it's very important to use proper logging when developing some complex application. In order to start using logger, we could specify a subsystem in order to be able to trace those logs into a console. And for subsystem, we usually use the bundle identifier of our application. OS log allows us to create different categories in order to be able to trace those logs that are tied to a specific module of your application. I've created two examples, which is logic and analytics. If you have a lot of modules, you can create a specific category to each of your modules inside of your application. So this is just simple extension for logger, and we specify here the two categories as a static constants. So another file I wanted to show you, this is log store. So that's basically a class that helps us to customly export our logs. So we hit the OS log store. As a position, we set the time frame or time interval that we want our log to be retrieved. And to the entries, we map those logs. Also, we do filtering to export logs only from our application, do some mapping, and export those entries as an array of strings. So let's go to the content view. And here I created a simple application with to showcase different log levels and formatting. So first of all, let's jump to the screen log types view. And here you can see the different log levels. There are 8 log levels that SwiftLogger allows us to have. The default log level is notice. There is one important thing about those different logs. I've sorted those logs by performance impact and importance. It means that top to bottom, we have log and info, which is the least important, and those logs has the least power impact, which means that more important your log is, it strips more data, more context about the defect you wanted to log, and therefore it has more performance impact. It doesn't mean that if you have a lot of those faults or critical logs, you will inevitably degrade the performance of your application, because nowadays chips like A16, M3, M4, they are too powerful. So you need to have thousands of those logs to really degrade the performance of your application. But just be mindful of that different log levels has different performance impact. Therefore, you don't want to use faults or criticals in every aspect of your application, but if you just wanted to print out some statements to figure out what the state of your application is, you would better use info or notice log level. If you want to print something just in sake of debugging purposes, you would want to use debug or trace. But for real errors, you use warnings or errors, and only in a specific cases when a half of your application died or the whole module does not work properly, you would use faults and criticals. Just be mindful of that, because Apple in WWDC video also showcases that those different log levels has different impact on performance. So that's important thing to know. So next, let's go to log formatting view, and here just simple showcase what you could do with those logs. I created a simple logs for trace and just to print out user ID. If you have some private data like bank account or user account identifier and you don't want to showcase it in logs, you can set privacy level. For instance, as you can see here, you have privacy masking and hashing. So in logs, it won't show the user ID. It will hash it, so you can still identify that those logs are tied to the same user ID, but you won't be logging the real user ID and possibly exposing some sensitive information. If you don't want to do that, you can set privacy to public, or you just don't need to write anything. It's going to be public by default. Also, we have something like alignment. You can align to the right, to the left, or use different formatting like hex or decimal. So that's briefly about the formatting logs. So now let's go back to content view and let's actually start our application and see how it really works. Okay, so here we have our application running on iPhone 15 Pro simulator. And let's start clicking the buttons, and as you can see in Xcode console, we have different logs, and for errors we have it marked yellow with yellow background, and for faults and criticals they have red background. For formatting also we have different formatting, alignments, and hex formatting for our number. So what if we want to export our logs? Here we have our button that shows a form sheet, and from here we can copy our logs or save it to files. So let's try to save it to files, rename it to logs, and hit save. And now when we open Files app, as you can see, we have logs, and we have log file with different our logs that we click through our application. It's been retrieved from the device from a specific storage where the unified login system from Apple saves our log files. Alright, so that was a brief overview of Logger application. So now let's switch our run destination to a real device, and I wanted to show you how to get logs from your device. So I've connected my iPhone wirelessly to my Xcode, and here from the drop-down menu, let's select Manage Run Destinations. And my device is selected. If you want to get logs from a device, just click Open Recent Logs, which opens the storage where you can detect and download logs from your device. And now let's try running this application on my iPhone. And the last thing I wanted to show you how to view logs in console app, not inside Xcode, but console app on your Mac. Okay, so now the app is running. Let's open Launchpad and select console app. On the left side, let's select iPhone AF, which is identifier for my iPhone. On menu strip of console, let's select action and make sure include info messages and include debug messages are selected, because otherwise console won't show any debug or info messages. And now in search, let's get back to our application, select the project, open target and sign in capabilities, and copy our bundle identifier, because as you remember in logger extension we set our subsystem to be the same as our app bundle identifier. So let's go back to console app and in search paste our bundle identifier, and on the small drop down that shows any, let's select subsystem and hit enter and click start, which starts streaming. And now on my app I start clicking different buttons for different log levels, and as you can see it streams different logs to the console application. And when you select a specific log, you can see more info, the subsystem, the category, open some more details, which thread it was, and the date and the message of your log. So that's how you use the console app to stream logs from your device, which could help you to detect and trace some bugs. So this is it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you found this video interesting or useful, give it a like, consider subscribing to this channel, and I will see you next episode. Thank you for watching and goodbye.